The revolution's begun. The time to stand up has come. We are the rocking of the throne. We are the rocking of the throne.
Hi, I'm Victor Tiffany with Citizens Against Plutocracy, speaking this evening with Roza Calderon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She's a CFAR candidate in California's 4th District. Roza, thank you for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having me.
And I pronounced that right?
Yes, you did. You got that right.
Okay, good. So before I get into questions about the contract and why you signed it and so forth, why don't you tell voters a little bit about yourself, how you came to run as a Democrat, and specifically as a Justice Democrat?
Well, specifically as a Justice Democrat, there's a few things when I chose to run that I really wanted to be at the forefront of my campaign. And one of those things was, of course, getting money out of politics. I truly believe that apathy in voters is related to the fact that most voters feel that their vote won't matter, that it doesn't count, and that their future is already decided by corporations and the highest bidder, because that's really what our elected officials have done. They're voting on behalf of who gets them into office, which is in return those biggest voters, corporations, Coke Industries, and that's really why I wanted to run as a progressive and particularly a Justice Democrat.
Okay, then. Why did you end up signing the Contract for American Renewal in the last couple of weeks?
For very similar reasons. You know, I do believe that we should have term limits. Our government officials really do not speak for us anymore. They don't represent us or our values. In fact, one of the things that they are most proud of is something that our congressman told us during our town halls is, if you don't like me, vote me out. Which the longer that we continue to push specifically for change, the more comfortable they get. And every single year when our congressmen get into office, the first things they do is, start running again for the next 2 years or the next 6 years. It's like a never ending cycle. And in particular, being a CFAR candidate, to me, what was important was a few of those things, that we want to make sure that we invest our money in the way that it should be invested, that we should see a return on the investment that we put in with our taxes and get infrastructure, get healthcare, get higher education and education overall. And those are things that are urgent and needed now.
So some of those things that you just mentioned are pretty big ticket items, expensive for the government to provide. You're just a tax and spend liberal, aren't you?
What was that?
You're a tax and spend liberal, aren't you?
Well, no, to me, we spend, as citizens, we give our government our money, and it is their job to turn back and actually give us our investment, which is what we are supposed to get. There's two things that taxes are supposed to provide, and that's liberties and securities. And currently, we lack in both of those departments. And what our government tells us, anytime that we demand the things that we are supposed to receive, is they say, well, I guess you just want to live off the government. You want the government to give you handouts, but it's not handouts. Buddy, you are the one getting my salary because of my handout. I'm the one paying for your salary. And our government has just increased and increased exponentially over time. Expenditures have exploded, and the money is there. All of the citizens, we are paying our part. We are doing our due diligence of paying our taxes. But what we have is a spending priority problem where we are no longer seen as a priority to our own government.
I want to mention something. It's kind of breaking news because you signed our newest revision of the Contract for American Renewal. We took out one of the tax increase proposals and added instead election integrity language, hand-counted ballots, and transparent counting of those ballots, secure counting. In other words, they have to be kept in a secure location until they're fully counted. They have to be retained in a secure location for X number of months, depending upon state law. but this is something that we're asking Congress to mandate in all federal elections in the next Congress. Would you speak a little bit to election integrity and particularly your experiences in California?
Absolutely. As time goes by, one of the things that we've noticed is that aside from people not wanting to come out and vote because we feel our vote won't matter, sometimes for some people, it truly doesn't matter. Their votes are not counted. And it is the case here in California. I think that our vote, three of us actually make up what one voter in Wyoming and their priority is. But also because we have this crazy deadline of we're going to vote on Tuesday and we're going to count the ballots as they're coming in, then we are also not taking into account the mail-in ballots or anything that made it just a little bit after. If we look at this election of 2016, what happened was because of the rush to just claim a winner that night, we lost the election overall over 80,000 votes. If you look at the Electoral College and the states that took this. But if you look at every single vote, and if we counted every single vote, just like a one-to-one democracy, then Hillary would have essentially won with over 3 million votes. And that's something that we need to start paying attention to, is not just the Electoral College, but even in those states where those votes that could have been counted later on, and with accuracy and with time, it could have flipped the electorate.
So of the 11 positions, because you retain, as I recall, all 11 of the policy positions, we have a litmus test, really, is what we're asking candidates to embrace. And then after you're elected next year, we'll be watching and make sure you abide and will hold you accountable, or your constituents will hold you accountable. Which of those 11 policy positions do you feel most passionate about? Which do you think you're going to spend most time working the hardest on once you're elected?
Well, I think one of the most important things, as I was getting to the bottom of the contract itself, was when you said that we had to abide by this contract, or we would basically, my constituents, and including CFAR, would come reclaim these things from me, because every politician will stand up in front of you and make every promise that that they can, just so that you can vote for them and get them elected. And this litmus test that you're talking about is, right now, being a progressive is pretty trendy. And even in my race, we have someone who constantly claims that they're progressive, but not truly progressive. And I think that if you were to present them with this contract in particular, that they would see it quite differently. I don't think that they would see this as something that they would sign, because it does demand a few things that we as progressives would not only fight for, but we're running with, and we are telling you that if we don't comply, that you will you have every right to demand that we either perform or step down. And I think those are the things that really attracted me to it. Was when you sign, it's done. It's a done deal. So that to me was the most important thing.
That's an interesting answer. So, and your answer actually leads right into my next question, and how you plan on deploying this contract. Are you going to send out a press release? If you're in a debate with Jessica Morse, are you going to be pointing out exactly what you just said? I'm a CFAR candidate. I have a certain commitment to the voters. Ms. Morris will never sign a contract like this because she just isn't a genuine progressive, and that's evident. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how would you expect to deploy this tactic? Really, it's an effective tactic that candidates have used to win elections before. So how do you plan on using this?
Well, like you said, it's something that we continue to see, especially now with people saying that they're not receiving corporate or lobbying money. We got to stick them to it. We can't just take them by their word anymore. Fortunately, FEC records are public. Let's go in there. Let's double check if these candidates are truly getting corporate or lobbying money. What do they mean by it's no PAC money when they have already signed a contract to fundraise on behalf of one of the biggest PACs that endorse them? So this is what we have to do, is we got to keep our candidates accountable. We got to start calling them out when they're lying to us right now, because if they're lying to us right now, if they're putting their values and their morals already in question, then what are they going to do once they get into office and they don't have to truly answer to us anymore?
One of the reasons we switched to a contract instead of just having people out there around the country try to figure out who's progressive and who's not. Some of these PACs have very progressive sounding names, and they're actually fairly conservative and corporate. So we wanted to just avoid exactly what you're suggesting people do, is to go look at the records, go see who's supporting these candidates, because it's so difficult when you've got PACs out there talking about a better, more progressive America, or the progressive PAC, or whatever they call themselves, and then they turn out to be a corporate PAC. So it's very difficult to separate genuine, real progressives from the Hillary Clinton type progressives. Oh, I'm a progressive, just one who likes to get things done. And she said that so many times, I thought Joseph Goebbels had risen from the dead and joined your campaign as an advisor.
Yeah, so I think we just have to be very careful. Even elected officials who are in office today, they really want to jump on this bandwagon. They just feel like this is what's going to get them reelected, what's not going to put them on the chopping block. Because as Democrats, we are actually challenging sitting Democrats. You know, this is not about attacking just the GOP. This is about attacking ineffective officials that are in office who are not doing anything for the constituents that they're supposed to represent. They are only in it for themselves.
That's exactly what we're doing with the Contract for American Renewal. I mean, that's exactly the same purpose, is to separate out, the people who actually want to go to Congress and represent people, because all these policy positions have large majority support. That's how they're decided. This isn't Revolt Against Plutocracy's agenda or Victor Tiffany's agenda. This comes from polling. And if polling doesn't support a policy position, for example, election reform and election integrity, it wasn't going to get on the contract, which actually took us a lot of searching to find the polling that actually allowed us to put that out there. So we're glad we found that. We're glad you signed on to it and kept that on the contract. So one more question then, just for people listening in your congressional district. They know you're out there. They know Jessica Morris is out there. Why would voters prefer you over Jessica? Why would they make that choice?
So the easy choice is the fact that I actually grew up here. I grew up here my entire life. I'm raising my family here. I started my business here. I am the only lifelong resident of District 4. And we currently have a carpetbagger in office. That's Tom McClintock. Unfortunately, as amazing as Jessica's resume may be, she also has never lived in this district. And her ties are not very conclusive of deep roots to this community. And to me, having deep roots to this community means that you have an obligation to the people around you. And that's really what's going to make the difference in office. When I get into office, we are running a very small dollar donation campaign where we have over 6,000 individual donors that have given us $1, $2. But these are people I've met, people I've heard their stories, people I've talked to. These are not donations that I've received from the max outs, from people that have money, who are able to give you $5,400 at a phone call after you reach out to them. So to me, when I get into Congress, my only debt will be to every single person who has, put tears and sweat and all the work that they're doing in my campaign, because we are completely grassroots, completely volunteer. And we're working tremendously hard, knocking on doors, making those phone calls. We are doing it the right way. I'm not sitting behind a phone, making phone calls all day, asking for money from outsiders who are going to end up influencing my vote in Congress. And I think that's really what separates me as a true progressive and someone like Jessica, who is essentially a carpetbagger in our district, and also does not have any true ties or dedication or debt to our community.
Well, 6,000 donors already at this point is a pretty darn good start. I wish you the best. We will be sending a blast out to our supporters that we accumulated during the last election in California, asking them to go to your website and donate a little bit of money if they can afford it, and if they're in your congressional district, to sign up as a volunteer, help you get on the ballot, and help you with your grassroots effort. Thanks for joining me this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Bye.
Revolt Against Plutocracy won't just be covering the news about the necessary revolution in the United States. Sometimes we'll be making the news. If you want to stay on top of the revolutionary actions and strategies of grassroots, genuine progressives, and our allies, please subscribe to our YouTube channel today.